Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Welcome to episode numero dos of the BTT podcast. I'm your buddy, Raymond Rasmusson. This is the show where I unpack the brains of your favorite artists from Beheading the Traitor and beyond. In this episode, I talked to Dan from Krosis about getting on Spotify playlists, putting on a $30 show for $15, and why your local scene has so many shitty bands. I hope you enjoy this conversation. I had a hell of a lot of fun having it. And as always, if there is any topic of discussion in this talk that you are particularly interested in and that you want to weigh in on, feel free to leave us a comment. And depending on where you hear this, if you could find it in your heart to rate our little show and perhaps subscribe as well, that would help us quite a bit. And of course, don't forget to check out our Spotify playlist, which actually this week was curated by Dan. Okay, so enough housekeeping. On with my conversation with Daniel from Krosis.
That was the nicest post you've ever made.
Oh,
or anyone's ever made. I woke up and I was like, it was like 10 o'clock, and I'm like, shit. I gotta let me just wash my face and look relatively presentable.
Yeah.
And I look on and I'm just like, oh my God, I'm so excited.
Well, it's so funny to see somebody lay out the things you've done. Because if you look at what you've done, to you, it's your life. So it doesn't really I don't know, maybe it doesn't feel as cool to you, but for a lot of the people that I talk to who are trying to head the direction that you've gone or the direction that you're heading, it's those steps, those things that you've done, they want to hear about them, right? It's getting endorsements and getting signed and stuff like that. And for you, you and I, we know that it's once you achieve those things, they don't really feel that huge. I've navigated pretty decent deals. I have all these consulting clients. I quit my day job a long fucking time ago. To a lot of people, they're wow, that's really cool. I'd love to do that. And for me, I'm just yeah. And I know the truth of it. It's a fucking, even with all the cool stuff that's happened, I know that it's still a fucking grind, right? And it's still, there's something,
right.
Still something hard to that. So it's
oh, yeah.
You as as an artist who's done, quite a bit as far as the average person hasn't done shit, right? They've barely played concerts, right? So for you to have, gotten signed and have all the endorsements and be playing cool shows, that's a step up, right? And I think what happens too much, and we haven't even started I've already started recording just because I figured something cool would probably come up in this conversation and maybe we can use it. But what I think is important is to not just talk to people who are playing stadiums, right? And playing in front of 20, 30, 40,000 people, because a lot of the stuff that worked for them isn't really it's not actionable for people who are just starting out. It's right. It's if you talk to Dave Grohl, what's he going to tell you? He's going to be well, what you got to do first is you got to just play in a garage and don't put any of your shit online because that's what Nirvana did. And it's dude, that's not good advice for the average Joe. And especially the average people who are not going to be, they're probably never going to be famous, right? They're never going to be millionaires, right? The likelihood that you're going to be a famous millionaire playing the music you're playing, not so good. But that's not to say that you couldn't create a living out of it. You know what I mean?
Right, of course.
That's what I'm obsessed with. I'm obsessed with the idea of a creative middle class where it's yeah, maybe you don't have a fucking Rolls Royce and a mansion, but maybe you can set up a life for yourself that's pretty comfortable, where all your bills are paid and you get to spend all your time doing shit you like to do. And I know, for me, that's what really matters. It's having the fucking time to do the thing that you love to do. It's not about having a fucking cool car and a big house, because a lot of my clients have that and they're fucking miserable. I met 2 billionaires in my life, and they were the most depressed people I've ever met. Because it's they're I've got everything, and I'm still not happy. What the fuck does that mean? At least when you're poor, you can be it would be nice if I had more money.
Right. Well, even I forget who said it. I think it was Ben Shapiro said that suicide is a privilege of the rich, and I thought that was very. He was obviously saying it in a tongue-in-cheek way, but he said suicide is a tendency of the rich. Yeah, I mean, he was saying that
sure.
a lot of the wealthy people have a higher suicide rate. And that was a very, I started researching that.
Kind of eye-opening, right?
Yeah, and I was just like, you know what? Because like all our lives, like that's the reason I went to college. I mean, mostly that's the reason that, you know, you try to accept better jobs to have more money, and then to learn that, oh wow, you know, the extremely wealthy have a lower life quality, I guess, mentally, or because they're so stressed out that their life is consumed by money and greed and avarice that they, you know, they forget everything about who they are, and they've sacrificed so much that whenever they, you know, actually settle down, they're like, well, what do I have besides all this money? Nobody loves me. Nobody cares about me. My kids have disowned me. My wife divorced me. You know what I mean? Things like that, or my, you know, whatever. So, yeah, and that's the thing. It's, if you're doing this for the money, and I've said this multiple times, if you do this for the money, just stop. Just stop. And,
there's much easier ways to make money. That's for sure. Like there's much, it's like go do anything else and you'll probably make more money than you were as an artist. But here's the problem. Here's the problem with it is like some people don't have a choice. Like some people, like that's what they got, right? Like for me, I've got a select few skills that I can really bring to the table, right? The things that I'm naturally good at. Like I couldn't go do like a data analytics thing or like a data entry thing. I'm really bad at, I'm good at marketing theory, but I hate sitting down to do like the granular stuff. The problem is a lot of the money is made, a lot of the romantic, like, let me say this, it's very romantic to be the theory guy, but a lot of the money goes to paying the people who actually do the work, right? So like these guys will make a lot more money. All the people who work for me who like actually handle the hands-on marketing stuff, in the very beginning, dude, I was paying them decent money and I wasn't making shit because it was like, without them, it wouldn't work. But here's the thing, like, I had to realize, like, look, but I can't do that. It's not in me to do certain things. And in a way, I've joked before that, like, you know, people put creativity and that kind of stuff on a pedestal, whether it's like, you know, in traditional entrepreneurship or as an artist, which even then I'm like, the only difference is like whether or not you're selling something, right? In my opinion, like if you're an artist who's selling something, you're a fucking businessman, you know, and I don't know. Nobody's been able to make a case for me that like, for like why that's not true. But all of that to say, the failure rate for entrepreneurship in general is really, really fucking high. You could almost say that type of creativity or that sort of like entrepreneur spirit is almost more of a curse than a blessing because it's constant. How nice would it be just to be like a fucking average Joe and not have to be like, not aspire for more, but to be happy with where you are, right? Like, I don't know. As I'm getting older, I'm learning to like, appreciate some of that. Let me say this. Well, you don't know because it's not you, right? Like you have to do it. You're like me. You have to do it. It's the only thing you can do. But there is sometimes where I'm like, wouldn't it be nice to just have a 9-to-5? Wouldn't it be nice?
It gives me life though. Cause even for me, like I understand that maybe some people can settle with the complacency of not having that constant pestering drive. I get what you're saying because it's this thing that's this like fire that's just constantly trying to get out. I get it, but for me, that I think that gives people like us a special kind of lifeblood inside our souls. I mean, not to sound too cheesy, but I think that gives us a special character about us that people that just settle for kind of the status quo, if you will, that just kind of turn the wheel. I don't think they even know that. And I know that it's as much of a curse as it is a blessing, but I think that we're able to achieve a higher standard of mental euphoria as artists by being able to express that on a daily basis. Because it's not even like I'm a manager of a restaurant, but I still will execute certain things in a similar way that I would execute certain artistic things. I still have that. It's a part of me. It's who I am. And it's something that I'm proud of. And it's something that I wouldn't change for anything. I wouldn't want to go back to being somebody who's, you know, not artistic. Because I still consider myself an average Joe. I think even if my band got big, I would still consider myself like an average Joe. Or Krosis will always be a local band in my eyes. That's just how I am. Yeah. I could never understand the mentality of being a superstar. That's why, like I told, and my guys also agree. We say no matter how big we get, we're never going to charge people to meet us. If we do a VIP, you're going to be getting like an experience.
Sure, you get like catering. You're going to get drinks. You're going to get.
You're going to get to hear music that no one else has heard yet. You're going to get. You're going to be a superstar with us for the night. Like we're going to get.
Did you see the talk I had with that guy Charlie?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. Did you see him talk about that? Where he's like, don't treat yourself like a rock star. Treat your fans like rock stars. I'm like That's fucking great. Because it's like, you stay humble that way. And you just stay like, what can I do for you? And when you do that, when you have that like servant mindset, it's like people keep showing up because they value shit like that, right? The worst bands that I see are the ones that are like so consumed with themselves that it's like, it's just toxic and people don't really want to spend time with it. Because but what I'm saying happening more and more often, and you're seeing it with companies too. It's like you said, like Krosis will always be a local band. You guys will even be a local band when you have 10 million fans because it's a mindset. It's about serving your community. And it's like the nice thing about the internet and all the tools that we have available now is that like you can scale, like you can bring more value to more people, but it doesn't necessarily mean like it's not a huge difference between serving 10,000 fans like a content experience and serving 10 million people a content experience, right? It's just
that's how there's so many bands that are internet bands. Like if you look at, gosh, I mean, you could take dozens. Take like Infinite Annihilator just for one like example. I don't think they've ever even played a live show. If they have, it's only been like one. You know what I mean? They don't tour. They don't. I mean, Aaron Kitcher has Black Tongue, but like. They've been pretty much, I think, almost entirely an internet project. And it's very interesting that they have been able to become such a household name for deathcore without doing, I don't want to say, because they put a lot of marketing and work into it. Let me track.
But it's different, right? It's not like they're doing the tour grind and doing all that stuff. Right. It's different.
You know, and they're still, obviously putting money into it. They're still recording and they still, obviously have a lot of talent to be able to play stuff that crazy. It's insane.
Right.
But, it's a whole different landscape now from whenever Nirvana, bands like Nirvana were trying to get big. And I think that it takes a whole different mindset. But for me, kind of going back to like the average Joe thing, I think as long as I agree, I think as long as you keep the mindset that you are essentially still an average Joe with just a creative mindset. I know people, and again, I have been taught to never name drop.
Of course.
But I have been friends with a number of bands, on the larger scale and on the local scale that start to walk around like they're the rock stars, like they're, and to me, I don't want to be even around those people because it's like, it's almost like, and the word toxic gets overused, I think, too much, but I would say that applies there because, these people are, again, I don't think it's authentic. I think they're in it, they have talent and I'm not saying that they don't like the art that they make, but I think they're in it for the money. They're in it for the girls or the fame or the notoriety. I think they might have some kind of a, not victim complex where they need to overcome it by trying to be more popular, but to me, if you're going to do that, then, your art's not going to be authentic. And I don't think that you're going to have a very extended longevity like the bands that have made it that genuinely love what they do. I think authenticity, that's like my word of the year. That's like my favorite word right now because whenever I was a student at NC State studying arts entrepreneurship, that was one of the biggest terms, the most common terms that was used was authenticity. And I think as long as that is the root of your cause, then, you'll be able to navigate everything else in a genuine, wholesome, legitimate way, as opposed to being like, okay, well, I'm using music as like a stepping stone or a crutch or some kind of a, I guess, other outlet to try to get popular, to try to get famous, to try to get people to like me, to try to fit in. And, as much as I think it should be a community, and I absolutely welcome that, to have that kind of entitlement complex to say, oh, my band is making halfway decent music and having a few fans, I should be worshipped. I will cut off friendships so fast because I'm not going to associate people with people like that because I don't support that. I think that, that's a very selfish mentality. And, that's why I genuinely, and it's hard because all of us musicians have egos. We do.
You have to have like some level of audacity to you to believe that it's like even possible to do some of that stuff. Like, so I think some of that egotism has to be there, just like with anybody who's doing anything big, right? You have to believe that it can happen. And that takes a little bit of, a little bit of ego, right? But you just have to know, like, when to keep it in check, when to keep it from becoming like toxic. I love that word authenticity. I love authenticity for so many reasons. One, as a consumer, it's much easier for me to feel a connection with an artist who I feel is being authentic. Two, from the artist side, from the producer side, it's so much easier to show up every day and be consistent when you're being authentic all the way through, right? It's hard to contrive shit out of nothingness. But if you're showing up every day and you're just being you, it's like having talks like this, right? Like, this one's obviously for the podcast. That's pretty, this one's going to be a little bit more robust and have more like stuff behind it. But I have conversations like this every fucking day, right? And and the reason why is because I genuinely enjoy having conversations like this. I'm not doing it to like further some personal brand or whatever. I mean, it has that ancillary benefit. But the reason I really do it is because I like fucking talking to people who are doing stuff. And that's the beauty of the internet, is like, you can build an audience doing the thing that you like to do, right? It could be anything. It could be, dude, my daughter is 2 and she finds the dumbest shit on YouTube, but it's like adult men who make slime and then like scoop it out of Tupperware and throw it in a trash can. And they've got millions, tens of millions of views. How fucking crazy is that, right? So the internet has made it so that you can potentially monetize whatever it is that you do, whether it's making slime or being a parent or being a musician. I think what's kind of ironic, and what we're going to start seeing more of, I think, especially like having conversations like this, is more artists or more musicians specifically being like, okay, let's get out of this scarcity mindset, right? The narrative that people have bought into over like the last decade, because it's like downloading killed albums and then streaming is stealing everything and Facebook is bullshit. Like, okay, it's like, okay, we get it. We've played out that narrative, but you're starting to see more and more artists using those, platforms of like streaming and Facebook and Instagram, using them as platforms and gateways to their success, and not just accepting, blindly accepting that they're barriers, right? And like that for me, that's important, because it's, making it possible for guys like you, guys like a lot of people that I talk to like actually go out and do it for real and make lives that like matter to them, where they can do like the shit they want to do. Because that's inspiring. I think it's better for the society as a whole if more people can live more fully like realized lives. You know what I mean? It's not good to have everybody like locked up in, shit they don't really want to do, And as a consumer, I want you to like have sustainable ways to create those like rock star experiences for me. You know what I mean? So like that involves the conversation of money, which for so long in music was especially among the more like artistic genres, like the idea of like making money was like kind of dirty. Any band that like did like, I don't know, did anything that involved like making cash was like, oh, well, they sold out. But it's like, no, but if you really think about it, making money allows you to create and fulfill promises for your audience, right? It's like, it's hard to exceed their expectations and create those awesome experiences, like, having a VIP, having like VIP tickets, but giving them like catering and beer and a full on experience. It's hard to do that if you don't have any fucking money, So it's like finding ways to honor yourself, but then also create financial engines so that you can also honor that audience that you're building, who signed up for the thing that you love to do. You know what I mean? So I think it's like, it's having mature conversations like this that really get me going, where I'm like, I think we can have the artistry and the financial engine too. There's no reason like you can't have both. The question is like, okay, but how do we do it in a way that honors both parties, both the producer and the consumer? And like, that's kind of like, in a way, I think that's a lot. Like Infinite Annihilator, for example, is like an example of somebody who's doing that, right? They're doing it it seems to be relatively sustainable. It's sustainable probably largely because they didn't blow all their fucking money trying to do the tour grind, right? You've got other brands like Bro Job, still same thing, right? They're not blowing all of their money doing tours, like, because it's probably not. My opinion is that it's not a very efficient way to build an audience in 2018. It's like local show turnouts ain't so good anymore. So like the idea of hopping in a van and doing all these shows where nobody shows up anyway. When the alternative is that you can have a good job, you can use that good job as the financial foundation for the band, create awesome content, support that awesome content with paid advertising so you can connect with the people who have a high probability of liking your shit. And then what you do is you see, okay, where do we have pockets of support? Great. Let's find high probability shows in those areas so that we can go there, maybe make a little bit of money, have a good turnout, and we can serve the people. It's like if you have 500 fans in Chicago, and then you've got an awesome show in Chicago that you can hop on, what are you going to do? You go hop in Chicago. You don't try to play every weekend in your hometown hoping to drum up, like support. It's like, no, like go deep, but go a little bit wider. And then use modern tools to find those people who like your shit. You know what I mean? Don't let geography limit you.
Right. I definitely think it's because I do love playing shows. I think it's a balance. I don't think touring as a whole for smaller bands is completely dead yet, because the couple tours that we have been on, while some shows, God, have definitely been better than others. Oh man, there's that's like a whole other can of worms right there. Some shows have definitely been better than others. There's been a lot of connections and a lot of really great, not just memories, but like, I guess, experiences and assets that we have gathered from those tours that we have been able to use to our, to our benefit. And we're happy that we did them. And it's important, I think, to establish yourself as a relevant band by, still playing shows and by still doing on some level, the tour grind, even if it's just one a year. I mean, we don't do a whole lot, but, that we've been trying to, like you said, find those pockets. That's why we recently played, up in Michigan, which is actually a state that's, for whatever reason, we actually do decent in. We saw that there was that Michigan Metal Fest with Whitechapel that was coming there, and instantly I see something like that, and I'm like, hey, we have contacts in Michigan because we toured in Michigan, and then instantly I hit them up. I don't even think we had to hit them up. I'm pretty sure they approached us because they were like, hey, we saw whenever you played, I forget the name of the venue. Whenever we played in Kalamazoo or something, and they were like, hey, we really liked you, we hung out with you, you know what I mean? And we were like, would you guys want to play this? And that was because we toured. So I think if you're gonna tour, make the most out of every show. Promote the crap out of it, do as much as you can to maximize not just the turnout, but the audience and the performance and the experience of every show, so that
and the right, and being proactive about the relationships you build at the show, I assume.
And as a result of that, we have contacts in Michigan, and they, we played up in, I think it was in August, we played with Whitechapel and Lorna Shore. It was thousands of people. I bet
that was a cool show. That had to have been a cool show.
Best day of my life.
Yeah.
I don't usually get nervous for shows anymore. I was terrified, dude. Yeah. I'm going to be like straight up. I was putting my IEMs in and I'm looking out and I'm like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
I'm not prepared for this. But it was surreal. And then now, we played that and then they were like, hey, we try to have different bands every year, but if you want to come back next year, they were talking about getting even bigger bands for next year. So we're like, hell yeah, put us on. Things like that. And that was largely because we toured, but it's not to say that you can't still create those relationships online. A lot of it just really comes down to the networking aspect. And for me, again, my major was communication. So I did personally, or I guess academically, kind of have a leg up just because I pursued that. I learned a lot from that, so that is kind of an advantage. So I guess that's my advice. Go get a communication degree. No.
There you go.
But it's a lot of it's just networking. Like I'm, going to be going to NAMM in January, which words cannot express how grateful I am to be going.
I have some friends who are going to be playing NAMM. That band Stellar Circuits? They're from...
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, our manager manages them as well. Yep, they're
cool.
on our management. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I talk to Jesse pretty frequently. Well, we haven't for a little while. It was like we had our talk, and then he just started like working. And it was so cool because it was like, I don't know, there's something really rewarding about kind of this work that I do. It's like I'll talk to people, and then they'll go off and actually do it. And they'll say, like, they'll even say stuff. They'll like thank me for the idea or whatever. But I'm like, dude, you're the one who had to do the work. It's easy for me to talk about it, but you're the one who's got to spend the hours doing all this stuff,
You're an inspiration though. That's, and I'm not trying to I genuinely mean, like, I've been following all of your posts for probably close to, at least a year now. And, I see everything, and I'm very peculiar with who I let in my, it's not even an inner circle. It's like that online inner circle, like your mentor kind of circle. And of course, some of my professors at State, some of the really successful, a couple of the guys in Periphery, guys like that I really follow their stuff and I watch how they market. Periphery also being my favorite band. Just got to give a shout out to my boys. But I try to keep, people like that in my mentor inner circle, if you will, people who I just follow the closest on social media. You know what I mean? And I would also encourage anyone who's watching to go follow all the guys in Periphery on social media and watch how they market not just the band, but themselves.
Misha's personal brand is really impressive. He's really done a great job with that.
Yes. Same with, Matt, I mean, all of them, really. Yeah. Anytime they put out studio updates or anything, I was watching Nolly's bass update for recording P4, and it's just the little details I focus on, and just the quality of how they do things, and how each member is like a separate mini business that has formed this like conglomerate, like super transformer that is Periphery, and it's mind blowing.
Well, they did the really smart thing. They built their audience, and then they worked to find ways to serve that audience. That's exactly what they've done, right? They built up a fan base of basically a ton of musicians, right? Because that's, generally speaking, that's their target demographic, is people who can appreciate that type of music, right? It's like the new jazz. Like, the only people who really enjoy jazz are like musicians, right? So it's the same kind of thing, I think. Like, for those types of more complex genres, it's like a lot of your audience is going to be musicians. And then it's like, okay, what can we do to serve that audience more, right? Well, a lot of these guys are going to like be recording themselves. So it's like, okay, I'm going to do this. Like, I'm going to do Get Good Drums, or like, Misha's got a bunch of course, there's tons of guitar nerds, and like, they're all like fucking gear nuts because he set himself up that way, right? He's a gear nut. So he built up an audience of gear nuts, right? I remember, I was active on like the 7string.org, and more so on like, the Andy Sneap forum, and like Misha would be kind of there. So like, even then, like, what I love about Misha was that he was always so fucking nice. Like, and he always had awesome gear and awesome like riffs, and like all of his stuff was really fucking cool. But he was also like really, really fucking nice, which I think helped too. Like, being authentic, also being really not like being kind, like working to be, I don't know, just a decent fucking person probably helps a lot too. Like, they all seem to me, and I don't know them, but they all come off as like super cool dudes.
Well, I've actually had the pleasure of being able to do two meet and greet sessions with them, and they were my I mean, aside from, again, them being my favorite band, but my two favorite meet and greet sessions I've ever done with any band, because it was literally just a hangout session. And like, the thing I loved the most was like, even for like a school project, and for an interview when I used to write for It Gents, I would just message Matt, and I was like, hey, can I do an interview, or can I ask you for a quote for a school project? And he was always so attentive. Like, he was genuinely happy to assist me in whatever way he could, like really like give back to his fans on a personal level and establish the relationships with them. And I'm like, I can't imagine. I mean, of course they have hundreds of thousands of, probably millions of fans now at this point. And, I feel like they go out of their way to really try to connect with as many as they can, which is so admirable given the amount of work that they're always doing for their own brands as well as Periphery. But like, even just, they treat their fans like family. And that to me is massive. I'll see Matt at a show. I saw him the last time I saw him in Charlotte. I saw him walking kind of, past me or whatever. And I was like, yo, what's up, dude? And he like treated me like I was one of his old high school buddies. And I'm like, that is like, that made me feel so, I was like, I was blown away. I was really blown away by just how, again, it goes back to that authenticity. They genuinely love their craft. They love their audience. They love what they do, and they're grateful for it. I think maybe
another word that we can have in there, we've got authenticity, but I also think gratitude is big too.
Yeah.
Right? Like they seem to really appreciate their audience, right? And because they're living in this like attitude of gratitude, that sounds so fucking cheesy, but like that attitude of gratitude, you then try to find ways, because you care about those people, right? So then you try to find ways to bring them value. If you're not grateful for your audience, what's the likelihood that you're going to be able to craft an experience that is really exciting and interesting for them? Because if you don't give a shit, then you're just going to do like half-ass, like here's some bullshit thing that I threw together. And they're going to know that. But if they feel like you truly value them and that you're working your fucking ass off to bring them like awesome, transformative, exciting experiences, they're gonna, I don't know. I just feel like that it builds up this like kind of like a goodwill vault, right? Where everybody's just like, hey man, I love you. And they're like, hey man, I love you too. Let's try to find more ways to support each other. I'll make all this stuff. And the other person's like, hey, great. I'll buy it because I love you. I love you and what you do. And it's like, this is how we just keep this whole ecosystem going. It's like, it's an economy of gratitude.
I love the terminology you said. You said, I'll buy it, I love it, or I'll buy it because I love you. It's very interesting. And a couple of the sales jobs that I'd taken before my manager position, they always told us to sell yourself first. And they said that, the customer, or essentially, whoever the client is, essentially buying you as an agent, or as I was selling life insurance at the time. And they said, they're buying you as an agent, as a friend, as a personal, just, I guess, I don't know, fill in the blank, anything. Yeah. I mean, you're there to.
Well, I've always said to the sales teams I build, I say, the first time they buy you, the second time they buy the product. Yeah. And that's just how it is, right? They buy once for you, they buy twice for the product.
Right. And that's why, they were like, establish yourself as their own, personal assistant. Yes, just for whatever they need. Sure. And
you're their consultant. That's why, like with sales, for example, the best salesmen are not salesmen. They almost like they're consulting, right? Where
they're
it's like
that's essentially what the guy who trained me to do life insurance sales, he said, we're not salesmen. He was like militant with the way he trained. I mean, that's again another can of worms for a different day. But as far as the amount of knowledge in a short time, he packed a lot in. And he said, you're not salesmen, you're problem solvers. You're going in there not to try to make a quick buck. He's like, you're, what did he call it? A selfish beneficiary. I thought that was pretty funny.
That's cool.
And, and he's just like, you're just happening to be in the right place to sell them the life insurance that they need. And, get them set up so that they're prepared for the future. And then you just happen to be making whatever commission on it, so that, the priority then at that point is the client, not upselling them, things that they might not need. Or he said, you don't sell ice to an Eskimo. That's a con artist. They already have
it. Sure.
Sell them a chisel. Sell them something they're going to actually use. And in today's market, there's so much oversaturation. There's so much flooding of such similar kinds of content that people are going to skip over the shit that they see that they could get from anywhere else. And that's why even on a live setting or scale, my guys and I put so much time into trying to make a 30 minutes or 45 minutes, or sometimes, just if you're opening for a big show, you get 20 minutes, 18 minutes. We try to make that time the absolute best, most inclusive, most experiential moment, where there's theatrics, where we try to put, and I know some people are kind of iffy on backing tracks. I get it. Some bands don't like it. One could argue that takes away from the authenticity. Okay, I'll play devil's advocate for a second. But, that's why we put those in there, is because I want people to feel like they're immersed in a movie. I want people to feel like, oh my gosh, like the world is ending. this is like the anthem of the apocalypse.
Sure, sure. Well, I think the hate on backing tracks is so silly. Like, the only thing that matters is like the type of experience you're creating for your audience, right? You're not. I don't think it's a knock against authenticity either. Like, because nobody's thinking that you're performing all of the orchestra behind your shit, right? Like, nobody's like, you're not like. Nobody's expecting that you're gonna have like viola players and shit, and like somebody with timpani. Like, that's.
I've had people ask. To be fair, I have had people ask. They said, "Do you do all that live?" And I'm like,
Dude, no. Anybody who shits on you for that, they can go fuck themselves, because that's stupid. Like, because it wouldn't be possible to deliver any experience if you had to do that.
Jimmy Borgier's done it.
I was going to say that.
Borgier has done it.
They've done it, yeah. But they also have the financial engine to make that happen, right? And they've been at it since like fucking forever, right? And I've seen them live. I've seen them live 3 times. Like, they use backing tracks. You know what I mean? It was only in that very specific situation. It's like you see Devin Townsend. Look, if Devin Townsend can get away with using backing tracks, so can everybody else. Like, it's fine. Yeah. The only thing that matters is, was it an entertaining experience for your audience? Anybody who shits on you for using backing tracks, fuck them. Like, you don't really want them a part of your audience anyway. Like, why are you gonna be like, oh, well, it's not real. Like, dude, fuck you. Like, I don't want you on the team if you're gonna be an asshole. Like, just be like, hey man, it's okay to be like, hey look, it's not my thing. Much respect. I'm glad you guys are doing okay. Like, that's cool. It's, I don't know. I think like when people do shit like they grandstand, or they like, it's almost like virtue signaling, but for like, it's stupid. Like, really, like, even, people get down to like debating subgenres. Like, who fucking cares, dude? Like, the people who are,
I do that.
You debate subgenres? God damn it. Tell me, okay, all right, just for me, why?
I do it in a friendly way, though, to be fair.
Okay.
I'm a big music theory nerd, like massive. I mean, all of us are. And you might even be able to gather that from some of our music, because we're very progressive. But I personally enjoy discussing, especially having a music background, I like discussing the differences in what makes a subgenre different from another subgenre musically, whether it's the guitars, whether it's the tuning, whether it's the style of playing. If because a lot of people call my band a deathcore band, and we kind of struggle with that a little bit, because we are, but whenever you think of deathcore, you think of like not New Suicide Silence, but you think of like, Carnifex, Whitechapel, Oceano, bands like, the old school deathcore, Impending Doom, things like that.
You could even argue like the Red Chord, or even Despised Icon, like kind of like era.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. If you compare any of those bands to what my band does musically, it's wildly different. There are elements of deathcore. There are elements of death metal, especially in our new stuff. We're going from more of a deathcore to a technical death metal. We're kind of rebranding a little bit, which I can show you, some new music later, kind of in off time. I'd like your opinion on kind of the switch, but, which my band told me not to send it to anyone. So let's pray that they're not watching this.
That's fine. Yeah, they're not going to watch it. There's like 3 people who watch this, so it's fine. Me. It's fine.
But, and for me, subgenres are important I'm a little bit of a closet elitist.
Gotcha.
And I joke, but like, even while I was in line standing at the Contortionist, I was talking with like 3 or 4 different people. We were like, ooh, what's the difference between like melodic, jazzy, progressive, instrumental core and, whatever. Like, well, this album actually had more elements of like, whatever. Just,
I think that type of nerding out is okay. I think that where it becomes, I guess, kind of to go back to that word, toxic. Where it becomes toxic is where you start putting, when you start putting a subgenre over another subgenre. Like, this genre is better than this genre. I see a lot of that, and I'm like, that's stupid. Because it's art. Like, there's no objective reality. It's just like, it's just what resonates with you and what doesn't. And there's so many things that factor into that, like your upbringing and your personal experiences through childhood and all that stuff. And like, there's no objective. Like, the only way that I think you can be truly objective or have like objective standards on is live performance. And the way you would be objective is what percentage of the notes they wrote can they actually perform, right? It's like Guitar Hero. If your score is below 30%, I think I could probably say that you're a pretty shitty band, especially if I paid. Like if I didn't pay, then it's like okay. But if I paid $15 to $20 and you can't perform your own music, I think I have a little bit of a right because I paid for an experience and you did not deliver on that experience. And in that situation, I can be like almost warning the other people in my circle, like, look, hey man, it's not worth the $20, $25 because they're not really all that good live.
That's also very interesting again. And I'm going off, again, some of the diction that's being thrown around here. It's very interesting that you would bring that up because I do think that is perhaps part of the reason why some local scenes are not doing as well as their potential is because, it might come down to the level of the experience that the local artists are putting on, or I guess are not putting on or failing to put on, I guess. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to choose my words carefully because I don't want to seem like I'm attacking local bands at all.
I'll attack local bands. A lot of them give shitty experiences. If they didn't give shitty experiences, more people would come out to shows. There's no debate there. If you created a show that was compelling, people would come to it. Like it's not fucking rocket science,
And I think that's an interesting discussion to have. I think if that, the days where a part of it is cultural. I think part of it before social media was so just a massive. I have a love-hate relationship with it because it's like you said, it's an outlet, but it also is very much a cancer on society. And I think it
can be. It depends on how you've curated your feed. If you let a bunch of shitty people, if you go and add girls because they're hot and guys because they have guitars in their pictures, like, hey, yeah, your user experience on social media is probably going to be pretty shitty. But if you just add people who you love and respect, like, you're probably going to have a pretty okay experience. It's when you start getting greedy and you just want to look at like girls' asses and shit like that. Like, that's when stuff starts getting real dodgy. I think, truthfully, the level of entertainment that the average person demands now is much higher than it used to be, right? They used to be willing to take a chance on having a bad evening because what else are they going to do, right? Sit at home and watch like fucking VHS tapes. But now they have like billions of dollars of entertainment value on their phone. So it's like they're not willing to take the chance of having a bad evening or even a boring evening, right? So like that's why, like I talk about social media, right? And why I think digital marketing, or why I think this is the best time ever for artists. One, there are no gatekeepers, right? As far as like distribution and, like your marketing platforms. It's not like you have to go and like somehow, get signed to a label and then you can end up, like on television so that maybe you can get exposure. It's like, no, you just go direct to Facebook. You have the same tools as every other, business and every other band out there. So it's like
yes, I definitely agree, at least to a pretty far extent on that. I do think there's not the gatekeepers that do exist. They're almost kind of like one-sided guys with spears that you can maybe get around if you're.
But it's like, what are they gatekeeping that matters?
I think it's whenever it comes down to the networks and the assets that they have in their corner. I think it's a big who you know kind of thing, not so much like what you can do versus what someone else can do. I think that if gatekeepers do exist, I think that it's things that they're able to do on a larger scale because of the platform that they've created, that if you can use that to your advantage and you can network with them and you can work with them as partners,
right?
That's part of the reason why I'm so excited to go to NAMM is because, the amount of people already that I've seen on my newsfeed, famous people, like pretty well-known people that are going to be there that I'm going to have the chance to talk to and meet and connect with and network with. It's going to be, not to be super like exaggerating, but it could be career changing.
Sure. Well, let me say my point about gatekeepers, right? Once upon a time, you had to go through gatekeepers if you were going to have any level of success. Like, I mean, physical distribution was the only kind of distribution besides radio. But then all the major radio stations had deals locked up with the record labels. So the only way you would get any type of distribution, whether it's physical media or over the airwaves, would be through gatekeepers. Now gatekeepers are optional. It can accelerate your success, but it doesn't necessarily have to be like, well, either I go and suck this dude's dick or I just keep working at fucking Wendy's. It's like, no, what I could do is just build up my audience, have like a grassroots movement. I can go direct to customer and build my audience that way. Would it be easier if I had, like, for example, like label backing or an awesome manager? Sure, of course. But sometimes that's not an option for whatever reason. Either you're playing shit that nobody else gets, right? But like you get, and maybe there's a group of people who might also get it, but the average, but like the label executive doesn't fucking get it. Like that's fine, right? There's so many reasons why somebody in a gatekeeper position, would say no, but that doesn't mean that you still can't do it. Plenty of bands are doing, plenty of businesses in general are being generated, just through grassroots movements. I mean, it happens all the time. And that's where my excitement comes from. It's not that like gatekeepers don't exist. I mean, they gatekeep their own networks. They gatekeep access to finances, right? I mean, that's what a label is, right? If you want access to a label's finances, well, you're kind of at the behest of the, an A&R or, whatever their executive staff is like. They're gatekeeping their own resources, but they're not gatekeeping the entire industry anymore. And that's where my excitement comes from. It's like, okay, you at least have options, right? Yeah, you could do the cheat codes with X, X, Y, R1, L1, R2, circle, and that's getting signed and getting access to their resources. But you can just play the game, play the long game, play every fucking level, and do it that way too. So it's the availability of options now that excites me.
And I think, so maybe I guess gatekeepers are not the correct term even. Maybe maybe call them, man. I mean, that's like, we would just develop a whole new term for, I guess people that are in the industry that are there, that exist, that if you can kind of, I guess, lock doors, if you will, if you can find the key to, then wow, there's like a treasure chest behind it. Sure. Like, on a personal level, I know I can speak unequivocally that getting signed to Unique Leader helped us way more than if we were not signed to Unique Leader.
Of course.
And I know that people have grievances about labels for, we've all heard horror stories of bands that have been taken advantage of, bands that, have had horrible things happen to them and had, that just issues. Right?
Well, whenever you have a power differential like that, when you have somebody who's in power and somebody who's not, the likelihood that power will be abused is pretty goddamn high. I mean, that's like a universal. It happens everywhere. But no, I think what you're saying is, let me say this. There are tons of people who say across the board, all record labels are bad. I don't believe that one bit. I think there are awesome record labels out there, like Unique Leader is one of them. Sharp Tone, I think, is another one, where it's like they're forward thinking. They have like they're willing to adapt to the new industry. They're not how do I say it? They don't seem to be operating from a scarcity mindset. They see the opportunities out there, and because of that, they're willing to create contracts that are maybe a little bit less aggressive than some of the older industry guys would do it, because the old industry guys are like, oh my God, everything's crashing down around us. Let's sign some aggressive contracts. Hopefully 1 out of 10 of the artists will do something and we'll do, a little bit more than break even. But the labels who are looking towards the future with, optimism and excitement rather than like pessimism and fear, I'm in favor of. And I think it's important to have mature conversations about the role of record labels, right? Like, in a world where physical distribution doesn't really mean shit in most markets. In some markets, sure, but most markets, physical distribution is neither here nor there. So then in my opinion, the last two resources that they have access to, which are incredibly valuable, is access to capital. That's important. And access to a network, right? And then even better if they have their own platforms to work off of, right? Like if they've got, 1 million followers on Facebook, having something of yours spit out to those 1 million followers, that's also useful, right? That's just them using their brand, right? And that's fine too. So like, I don't think it's fair to say that all record labels are bad. That's painting with too broad a stroke. And it stops us from having rational discussions about what the value could be or what their new role could be.
I guess the proper term then for maybe this entire conglomerate of industry, people or businesses or what have you, instead of maybe calling them gatekeepers, maybe we can look at them as kind of cultural intermediaries, the same way that we would, that
doesn't sound as sexy.
It doesn't, but a lot of behind the scenes business terms aren't sexy until somebody markets them and repackages them and advertise. But and that was because that was one of my favorite terms from college was with and I got to give him a shout out too, Dr. Beckman. I'm definitely going to share this today. He has been my number one mentor, bar none. He taught us about the importance of cultural intermediaries, and if you can get, because think about it, I mean, you get one page that has millions of likes or something to share something, instantly you're going to see your fan base grow. I know that there's a page called it's called Deathcore Dad Memes. I don't know if you're familiar.
No. Oh yeah, no. I definitely know that one.
I'm actually really good friends with the owner of and the moderator of that page, and he's been amazing to us. He helps us find content and memes and things to share. We shared one recently, the Red Dead Redemption 2 meme. Mm-hmm. And it was like, sounds like a job for a Cowboys like thing underneath. It was hilarious.
I think I saw that.
And when I looked at the analytics, it's reached almost 400,000 people now. I'm like, what? Damn. You know what I mean? So if you have pages like that, or cultural intermediaries, if you will, like that. And again, record labels act like that. Managers kind of act like that on a business scale, because I think that they, like Alex, has helped us get deals. I mean, he's the one who helped us get signed. He's the one who...
I was going to ask about that. That's something I had people like submit questions and stuff. That's one thing that I wanted to ask you about. So go with that, but then I want to kind of dive into that a little bit more.
Yeah, no, and I mean, that's pretty much it. It's just kind of like, I see them as intermediaries in the sense that they have an asset that, a band, say take our band, did not have before them. Mm-hmm. They have either the millions of likes, followers. They have, the network connections that people that we just don't know yet. They have maybe the skill and strategies that we might not know yet because, or a band might not know because they're still in a kind of a fledgling state as opposed to being, someone who's been in the industry for 10, 12, 20, 30 years.
Some of those people don't know shit either, though. I'll be honest with you. A lot of those people
I agree. Or sometimes the things that they use might be outdated. I definitely understand that. But I do think a lot of it comes down to who you know. And that's part of the reason why, like I said, going to NAMM, doing things like this, and even touring is it's so epic for bands because you never know who's going to be at your shows. Some of the people I'm still friends that I never thought would be coming to my shows ended up helping us score a festival with Whitechapel. Sure. Like, that's what it comes down to. And I think utilizing every facet of every experience that you have as an artist, as a businessman, as an entrepreneur, etc., is going to be the key to maximizing each opportunity to work for your benefit, so that you can maximize your business, your fan base. And that's why I do like still that record labels and things like that exist, because I do think that cultural intermediaries will either seek out bands that are going to support the market, I guess, the best they can, or the bands that are the most ambitious, that have the most to offer, are going to seek them out. And the cream's gonna rise to the top, and it's gonna show their work ethic as well as the art quality, because they're gonna go, hey, we want to get signed. We need to bust our asses to get signed because of the oversaturation. We have to stand out. Next thing you know, you have the next insane band, next trend, or the next subgenre, because that band decided to kind of reach for the stars. So I guess that would be the term I would use, albeit not sexy. Yeah. I like intermediary because you're kind of, it's that next step. It's somebody that might be able to be a stepping stone for you toward the top.
Sure.
So
I mean, some of that reminds me of sort of like the term influencer, and you have like influencer marketing. Right. Those are kind of the three pieces. That's how I view labels now. It's like they can provide the some of the financial assets. They can also provide the network as far as like getting you connected with decent booking agents, managers, engineers, blah, 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 the whole network aspect. But then also there's the influencer aspect where because they've built up an audience themselves, that also offers a platform. The question for me is, and this is something that we just need to sort of iron out, like we all recognize that those things are valuable. The question is whether or not they're being sold for a price that's reasonable. Right. You know what I mean? So it's like, and that is like a case by case basis, right? Like signing a record label where, yes, you get all of those things, but you're also giving up 50% of everything for the rest of fucking, for the next 10 years. It's like, all of those things are useful, but is it priced appropriately? And sometimes the answer is yes. Sometimes the answer is no. And it takes some level of like business acumen, some level of like not like business knowledge to be like, is this a good deal? Right? Like I work primarily in the startup world, right? So I have to think about, okay, let's say we're doing a round of funding and somebody comes to us and they say, we're willing to give you X amount of dollars and we want Y%, right? I have to make the decision about, okay, is this a good call, right? Do we want to give up 51% for this amount of money, right? And then then there's like an art and a science to it, because if it's Mark Cuban making the offer, maybe I'll do it, right? But if it's just, Joe Schmo at some fucking local hedge fund who just is like trying to like do something, maybe not so much, right? So it's like, it's so much about like, you just got to be smart, man. Like you can't be stupid and like just blindly walk into, you don't necessarily just want to take the first label deal, right? Just because somebody offered it. Oh, absolutely. It's like, there's all kinds of stuff, but it's like, but your fear kicks in at some point. You get your first offer and let's say it's from like fucking Victory or something like that. And it's like, maybe or maybe not, it's like, it just kind of depends on, how much risk are you willing to take on? How much risk do you perceive from this person or this company? How much commitment are they asking for? Are you able to get out if things go sideways? Like, and some of that, it's really hard. It's almost unreasonable to expect that artists, especially young artists, would be able to make rational decisions on those things. But I think more and more, like if you're going to go the label route, my opinion is that you should at least get your business to break even or slightly profitable. Because in order to just even get to break even, it's so much fucking work. Right? You get to really know your business. And once you know your business, you're in a better position to be like, hey, what they're offering is valuable to us. Or, hey, it's not really, or it's valuable, but it's not priced appropriately. I'm not willing to give up half of everything that we've already done in order to get this other thing. But if you're running your business at cash flow negative and you're running it like shit, anytime anybody comes in with, anything that's got a dollar sign in front of it, you're going to be like, oh, give us that money because we're so fucking cash poor. But if you're not cash poor, you can make a better logical decision, an unemotional decision about, is this a good move? And like that for me is most artists, ones that who are getting label offers from labels that aren't like Unique Leader or aren't like Sharp Tone, who maybe it's an indie label who really doesn't have like a track record at all. Or maybe it's a big indie label who's got a really shitty track record, like deciding, okay, do we pass up on this opportunity because historically this label's done some shit? Are we willing to take the risk of never getting a label offer ever again? Do we want to keep doing this DIY? Like, there's so many, I think there's an art and a science to it, right? You need to know, you should know your numbers. You should at least know, how much it costs you to acquire a customer. You should at least have an idea of the lifetime value of that customer. If you don't know those two things, at least those two things, I don't think you have any business. Well, I'm not going to say you don't have any business, but I think it's very hard to make a decision about how accurately priced a label offer could be. right? Because if it's like if your lifetime value of a customer is $500, $600, and it costs you, I don't know, however many dollars, to $100 maybe, $50, $100 to acquire those customers, then it's like, okay, if we had more money, if we could get more cash flow in, right, here's how it would affect us, right? If we're $50, for customer acquisition, it's kind of a lot, but $50, like if we could just get more $50, this would be the output, right? This is how much money we would make. But if you're like, maybe you're running at cash flow negative, maybe it costs you, I don't know, let's say, lifetime value of a customer is $20 and it costs you $30 to acquire that customer. No amount of money coming in from a label is going to be able to fucking save you, right? You're losing money, and more money is not going to save you. And most labels, honestly, what I've seen is they're not doing much artist development these days. Most labels, I could be wrong. I mean, case by case basis, but knowing that most labels aren't going to be developing you much as an artist, there's even more pressure to know your shit before you get into before you enter into a relationship with them, because they're not going to take you necessarily from, 1 to 100. Usually what they'll do is they'll give you a little bit and they see if you sink or swim. And then if you don't do shit, they shelf you. I've seen it happen a million times, right? And there's reasons for that.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's all of that to say, like, you just gotta be smart. It's better if you know your business before you start like trying to take on money and make, have all of these like liabilities and all these like agreements. But I get people who do it early, because it's really hard to pass up, a relationship with somebody who you feel like is going to take you further. It's just like, I don't know. I think it's things to consider, when you get a label offers, like how well do I know my shit? And if I don't know my shit, how do I know if the offer they're making is fair?
It's going to be in my benefit. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And that's why I really liked having Alex in our corner, while we were discussing, because I mean, when you're looking over a contract, I mean, you're essentially almost acting like a lawyer in that sentence. I mean, you're looking over a legal document of how much the record label is going to take, what they're going to do for you. And it's funny because we actually did negotiate our contract.
Good for you.
We, I don't want to give too many details on, because there, some things I think just should stay obviously between the label and us. But, we made sure, and there were a couple things that Alex found. There were a couple things that I personally found that, or my professor, I sent it to that same Dr. Beck, he looked over it and sent back, a bunch of like kind of highlighted, areas of like, looking at, things like, for example, I'm sure you're familiar with the concept of a sunset clause. Mm-hmm. Things like that, or, for people who aren't, things like, and I'm not even saying that this was in it or wasn't, just an example.
Generally speaking, sure.
Yeah. Things that basically once the contract is over, they still own a percentage, of kind of maybe what you're bringing in or your assets. They still kind of own you for a considerable, period of time. Right. And I've seen now a lot of times that happens with big contracts, like pop stars, artists that are going to be made millions, that the record label's like, okay, we helped turn you into Ariana Grande. You know what I mean? we did, I can understand, but, it's definitely a knowledge kind of thing. And that's why I think it can maybe redefine what a cultural intermediary is, because it becomes not so much cultural, it becomes like a business intermediary. And that's one of the reasons why we've kept Alex for as long as we have, is because he's always actively working towards, like, one of the things he helped us with recently, I guess kind of recently, this year, he helped us get free flights with Spirit Airlines across the country and anywhere we want to go.
Shit, tell him to hook me up, bro. Give me them free flights. I'm going to Iceland in August. Give me some of that. Let's do it.
I don't even know if they have a hub there.
Shit.
But in return, the way that Spirit, we do marketing for Spirit while we're there, we take pictures and we use our platforms to promote Spirit, and it becomes kind of a win-win. And as
how did he negotiate that deal? That's crazy.
Alex is
He's
good.
A beast.
I
He's a beast. That's awesome.
So now, all of our trips to NAMM are completely free.
Fuck.
And, and that's a huge leg up. So that's something that he, I think, was able to do that I personally don't think I'd be able to negotiate.
I have no idea even how to do that.
Right. That's what I mean. And so, I think having a good manager, having kind of a good, fifth man or sixth man or, whatever, an extra person, in your corner that is kind of a outside looking in, but still kind of part of your crew.
Sure.
Alex is our crew. We want to bring on crew members. We want to bring on business partners that have our best interest in heart. And, little things like that are ways that, we might not be able to go to NAMM because of the flight costs that, we take to get to California and back, especially if we're taking, somebody other than, if we're taking, a really expensive airline or something like that, like you never know. So that opens up opportunities. And
do you know where,
I don't know.
Do you know where Spirit is? Do they do international flights or is it just a U.S. thing? Do you know?
I believe it is U.S. I know I think they go to Puerto Rico. I think they go to the Dominican Republic.
Okay.
So, I wish that'd be so cool. Get us all taken care of.
The reason I asked is I was talking with a guy from a band called Surroundings, and they are in Perth, Australia. And he was talking about the struggle of touring when you live in, Perth is the most isolated city on the planet, right? Imagine you live in Perth. Perth is kind of the western part of Australia, right? All the other major cities are all the way on the other side of the continent. So I was talking to him about, he's like, anytime we want to go on tour, it's like $6,000 in just transportation cost. Right. And I'm like, man, bands in the US have it so easy. It's like, I could go on tour, if I can book the tour, I could go. Like I could go from Cincinnati, I go to Columbus, right? That's like an hour drive. I drive up to Cleveland, that's probably like 3 hours. Then I can go to Buffalo. Then I'll go to, wherever, right? I could just go. But bands like that, well, especially bands that are in like that Perth area, having the $6,000 overhead just to go on the tour, and you don't even know really it's not like they're a huge band, right? It's not like they're packing out every single venue. It's like the risk is so high for them. It'd be very interesting to see if a deal could be negotiated to alleviate at least some of that, of that cost.
No, absolutely. I would love to be able to, kind of look into something like that, or just kind of follow that to see if that would be possible, because that's a very interesting case. I definitely think that more bands should seek out deals like that, because I think there are deals to be made. I think, I'm very old school when it comes to the barter system. I think the barter system can be blown up on a grand scale to the level of getting free flights in exchange for social media marketing. And that's basically the deal that Alex made was, and like whenever I went to California to go shoot that video with Soultone, same thing. Every single flight, I had, or even in the layovers, like anywhere, I was always doing social media marketing for them and doing things. And, Spirit also, I think, started a program that it's the Music for Miles, I think program it is. And it's relatively new. And I'm pretty sure Alex had his management be one of the pilot groups that gets to kind of, because none of the flight attendants knew what the hell I was talking about.
Really?
What is it?
They're like, okay, sure, whatever, guy. Here's your peanuts.
Well, a couple of them were skeptical because I was trying to take pictures with them, and I'm like, hey, I'm doing this for the Music for Miles program. They're like, what? Why are you taking a selfie with me?
Right.
So, so this is a really new thing, and I think Alex just found that opportunity and he capitalized on it. Cool. So there are always opportunities to be had. That is if someone were to ask me, what is the secret? There are opportunities out there that just get missed and overlooked. It's the same with financial aid for colleges. I had all my colleges paid, all my student debt, everything paid for before I graduated college.
Damn.
Because I graduated on graduation day with no debt, and I cried like a baby because I was excited. And because I looked for those opportunities.
Right.
I maximized my world around me, and I used things to my advantage. There is so many scholarship money and financial aid money that goes to waste every year, and that blows my mind that I see so many people upset about not being able to pay for college. But meanwhile, you know what I mean? I didn't come from a place of any kind of financial privilege. My parents were, you know, lower middle class. I mean, there was nothing really, you know, my dad's a disabled veteran. Like, you know, I'm not coming from money. It's not like a big say, oh, your parents probably helped you. No, I lived on my own since I was 18 years old, you know, or 19 years old. So, you know, there are ways to do it. You just have to be creative. Same with my medical bills. Mm-hmm. I was able to set up a financial assistance thing, and I instead of going to the insurance companies, I said, screw that, I'm going to go straight to the hospital. This is also another little trick. I went to the hospitals, I negotiated a thing out with them, and it's a long story, but I ended up getting $3,000 worth of medical bills completely paid for without paying a dime.
Nice.
So there are ways to get around the system.
And it's like, and you have to be willing to, like, you know, kind of do the work, right? You have to be willing to even approach it unconventionally. Yeah. Like, for example, one thing that people ask me about is like, how can I get on playlists? How can I get on blogs? And I think blogs are kind of played out. Like, I don't know many people who are like actually reading blogs.
I don't think I've ever read a blog.
Yeah, I read blogs, but none of them are music related. I don't know. I don't need a tastemaker.
It just seems pointless to me. Like, I mean, that's essentially what Tumblr was created for in the beginning. And now it's just become this wasteland.
Whole thing.
But like,
here's the point I wanted to make though. When they do ask me that, I'm like, if that's really a priority for you, the playlist thing I get, right? Because what I think is cool about Spotify is like it's made music discovery kind of cool again. It actually has made it cool again, right? Which is fucking awesome. I love it. But the question is like, well, how do I get on these playlists? I'm like, try finding like where these people are, right? If they have a playlist, a lot of the time they'll have something else they're doing. It might be a podcast. They might have like a business page of some kind. It's like, go there and be a good citizen. Like, go there and just like interact, right? Like, play the long game, build a relationship. And then when it feels appropriate, then you maybe say, hey, look, we have this song, if you feel like it's appropriate for your playlist, that would be really cool. If not, no big deal. I love and appreciate what you do. Right. And if you already have a habit of like being a good citizen and they know who you are, maybe you've had some conversations, like that opens up those opportunities. There are deals to be made. There are better deals to be made when you've already brought value or you've already interacted with that person organically.
Because you sold yourself first.
There we go. Boom.
So, I mean, it goes back to marketing and business 101. That's what it is. And a lot of it also does come down to the product you're selling, essentially, which is your art, not to commodify it too much, but you like recently, it's interesting you bring up playlists because a couple days ago, actually, believe it or not, we were added to the official Spotify deathcore playlist, which was insane to wake up to. I was like, wow. A lot of that was because we stress our numbers. We stress our
how did you guys do that? Like, get practical for me. Because a lot of people want to do shit like that.
Practically speaking, trying to break it down in just like a few sentences, some of it did kind of come as a surprise to me. So I'm not gonna lie and try to sugarcoat it.
Sure.
But we networked by getting on other smaller playlists to help drive our numbers up to make our content seem worthy of being on their official playlist.
Sure.
So there were a couple playlists that we bought onto. I'm not going to lie.
Sure.
There were a couple playlists that had like several 100,000 subscribers that we bought onto. Like those were the ones, again, that value exchange, right? So we bought onto there. There were, we recently, our numbers just for Solem Vatem alone, recently hit over 100,000 plays on Spotify. And I think that's just it. It's getting the reach up to where you're going to essentially get discovered and be like, oh, okay, Spotify, I think, recognizes numbers. They follow an algorithm, even though they try to come off as like this cool indie hip. They follow the same algorithms that they.
Well, see, you have the human created playlist, but you also have the algorithmic ones too, right? And it's like, it sounds a lot like what you did, right? I mean, their algorithm prioritizes stuff like adding your shit to playlists. Right. So it's like it recognizes, within the, intergenre, which ones are getting put on playlists. And it's like, you know, whether it's small playlists or buying onto bigger playlists, that's interesting. I mean, it makes sense, right? I mean, you just scaled up and their algorithm was just like, okay, that band has a high probability of like fitting into this playlist. Boom, toss them in there. And it's great.
Something else that's really cool that I have been thinking about more, the song that they chose for they chose it for the deathcore playlist, which I was like, this is not really our genre, but I'll take it.
Whatever, we'll take it.
They chose Melting Point, which is like so not a deathcore song.
Yeah.
But there's a couple. It's our most played song, I think, other than Feed, but at least off of Solem Vatem, it's by a while. That's just why we'll probably always play it live. It's our most played song on Spotify, at least. And what I'm really happy about that is whenever people listen to it, they're not just going to hear another cookie cutter deathcore band that's trying to copy all the other deathcore. They're going to hear, you know, the intricacies that we put into the song Melting Point that, you know, are maybe going to be a little bit different from what they're used to. So it's going to stand out. So I think if you have your music stand out in a way and you can maybe put it, you know, pepper it in different markets where, because people are always looking for new experiences. So many people, that's part of the reason why oversaturated markets are starting to become such a problem for bands now, is because they're going, oh, okay, well, and this is just the way I believe that they think. They're going, well, why am I going to listen to this local band when I could just throw on Dire There's Murder? Why would I listen to, if this local band sounds exactly like Chelsea Grin, why the hell am I not just going to put on Chelsea Grin, who I know? It's like going to McDonald's overseas. Why would you, if you're going to see a McDonald's in Thailand, you're going to go. Why? Because you're used to it. You have established essentially a business to customer, you know, relationship.
It's familiarity. Right?
Right.
I mean, humans prioritize familiarity almost over anything else. Right? Even if the change would be better for them, they'll still have a hard time making that change because of familiarity.
So if you can pepper yourself within that, let's say just hypothetically there was someone in that McDonald's that was legally able to, you know, sell something that McDonald's didn't sell, right? Let's just say in whatever business world that would never work, but like a solicitation. But let's say that's essentially kind of the mindset that I think bands should have, is go into markets where there's just this same cookie cutter thing and say, hey, we have something new to dish out. Whenever people listen to the deathcore playlist now, they're going to find some of them are going to end up finding Melting Point. They're going to go, you know, this is something different. This sounds, you know, unique. And that's because we spend just an ungodly amount of time in the studio making every song unique. And it's just the amount of time, I would say, study up also on music theory. I think the more, knowledge is power, right? As cheesy as it sounds, we have been, you know, especially Brandon and Adam and Brian, my guitar players, I give them like 99% of the credit. Seriously. Like, Brandon writes most of my drum parts.
Fuck yeah. Cool. That's fine, dude.
Spoiler alert.
Sure.
You know, and he, just because he has an understanding of music theory, and Adam also has an understanding of music theory way more than I even have. And Brandon, like, for the new track, he wrote, like, you know, I went in there and tweaked some things and kind of made them my own and used some percussion theory, but they have such a knowledge of music theory and they've studied it for so long. And we've even been studying, like, again, not to totally seem like sellouts, but we've been studying pop theory, pop music theory.
Yeah, sure.
Because it's what's catchy. It's what's, you know, going to keep listeners engaged, not to the point where we're selling out, but if we're writing a riff, you know, we'll write it in a way that is still authentic to us, that we like listening to and playing, but also like, hey, you know, we can do this in a way that we think that it's going to resonate well with
as a high probability of people being receptive to it, right?
So that's a big part of it. And if we're writing things in a way that stand out and that are unique, I mean, even I could not believe this. One of our songs was on Jamie Josta's podcast, and one of the things
awesome.
Again, something Alex did for us. That was all Alex.
Dude, Alex is on his shit. That's awesome. I got to talk with him.
He is flawless. And, you know, one of the things that he said that stood out was the theatrical parts of our songs that, you know, and again, I can give you the link to that podcast. But it was the coolest thing was while we're on tour and we're like, holy crap, you know, you know, he noted the theatrical side of things. And that's why we play that live, is because we want people to be like, why does this sound like an Insidious 2, movie score?
Sure.
Like this is freaky. We add, certain things that, are going to be that a local band might not do or a typical band might not do. So, having a good engineer, having a good solid, knowledge of music theory and really spending, the same professor, Dr. Beckman, said the art does, at the bottom line, your art comes first. He said over anything. He said if your product sucks, if what you're putting out sucks, people aren't going to buy shit.
Sure.
And that's just what it is. So as long as your art is true to yourself and it's, again, authentic and you're genuine with the way that you market yourself as well as you sell yourself as well as you sell your art, that's how, again, I'm constantly trying to weed out my Facebook friends, just because I find myself networking so much that I'm just like, oh my God, I hit the friends list again. Let me go weed out like the bots. Sure. And then I'll just go back to networking, and it's people like, people try to add me and they're like, yo, you're Mr. Famous. I'm like, no, I reach out to these people. They're not reaching out to me. I'm trying to do the initiative. I do something for my band or my image or our image collectively every single day, even if it's minute, even if it's having a simple conversation with just a fan or a friend or somebody that can build up that relationship. I make sure that there is something I'm doing to progress my band. And again, it's not to say that I don't enjoy talking to the fans. I personally do enjoy that.
Right.
But there's always something you can do, not even just from a financial aspect, but just on a personal level to make people want to support your music. And, with as ubiquitous as social media is now, there's really no excuse not to network. I mean, it's in the palm of our hands.
It's so much easier now than it used to be. Yeah, dude, in real life, it's probably better, but the number of people that you have available. Okay, like, so, do you know, Lord Marco?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh my God.
Dude, when I was a kid, I looked up to that dude like he was drum Jesus. Cause I started off playing drums and he was just so far, like, he was just doing shit that I didn't even know was possible, right? Totally opened my mind to like, oh my God, Jesus Christ. So, just thinking about this is so surreal. Like him and I talk regularly now. And it's like, dude, 14-year-old me would be so fucking stoked. And it never would have happened if social media didn't exist. Right. So I think it's like, you have the experience on social media that you create for yourself. Right. If you add a bunch of people who are, you add a bunch of shitty people who get into petty drama and petty bullshit, like, you're going to have a shitty experience. But if you go out of your way to, connect with people who inspire you, who you love and you feel gratitude for, like, it makes your experience so much better. And I think by doing that, you also dramatically increase, the probability that you'll have, like relationships that translate to bigger things for whatever it is that you do, right? Like you build up that goodwill vault, right? You bring value to other people. You love on other people who are doing cool shit. And then eventually, you can ask, right? You give. I mean, this is like fucking Gary Vaynerchuk shit. It's like jab, 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 right hook, right? That's the whole thing, right? Bring value, little, small micro interactions. And then eventually you've built up that relationship enough that you can be like, hey, we put this song out. Would you listen to it? If you like it, it would be very cool if you'd put it on your playlist. If not, no big deal, right? Something like that. It's just jab, 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 right hook, like, relationship build, bring value, gratitude, patience, long game, all of that. And then you do your ask, right? So many bands are just fucking throwing right hooks. They're just ask. And they don't see any progress. And they're like, fuck, the industry's fucked and everything sucks. It's like, no, dude, you just suck. You're just asking too much. You're trying to sell everybody on a product that is worthless except to the people who already value it, right? Like music, in my opinion, music without context is worthless, right? If you had 50 Cent, but you didn't have the story of 50 Cent, nobody would give a fuck, right? Like, I think that like that's what gives for me, it's the context that gives the art value. I watched a documentary about a guy who's a painter, and he's like a famous forger. And what he would do is it was really smart the way he did it. He would take a famous painter who's maybe, you know, their paintings sell for tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then he would find a gap in their work. And then he would go and he would paint like a lost piece from that person, right? And then he would, he'd put it up for this, like, to these auction houses. They would auction it off for $100,000, maybe probably more. And then he would take his cut, right? And it was a total forgery. So the documentary followed him, and that was interesting. I think he's a German guy, but they also interviewed the people who bought his paintings. And one couple really struck me because they were obviously very wealthy. If you've got that kind of money to spend on paintings, you're doing pretty okay. And they have this gallery of artwork, right? All of these pieces, probably thousands and thousands of dollars. So they had it in their collection, right? In that room. And when they found out that it was a forgery, they realized, they said that it's not a piece of art. It's a piece of decoration. So then they moved it to like a guest room or something like that. But I'm like, but you guys thought, like, originally when you thought the context was it was from this painter, you spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. But when you realize that the context wasn't there, it becomes worthless, right? And for me, music is the same way. It's like, okay, the song is good, but if I know the reason behind the song, if I know if I know your struggle, or if I know even what made you happy, if I just know like the context of the song, that makes it so much more valuable to me. Like a band that I think has done this really well recently is Architects. Like that documentary they put out, Holy Ghost. Like I went from being like a lukewarm Architects fan to being like diehard fan. I bought 2 shirts and a hoodie after watching the documentary because I'm like, fuck, dude, like it contextualized that band. It certainly contextualized the new record so much that I was just like, dude, I can't not support this. You know, I can't not listen because it gives it gives it new weight. It feels like more than just like a bunch of guys having fun writing music. It's like, no, this is a piece of us, right? This comes from a place of real gravity. It's not just casual. It's serious. And like, to me, then I take it more seriously. And then I'm willing to support that more because it made me feel something. And it's like that, right? We feel emotionally about things that, people made with care and with love and who they put their soul into it. If it's that painting, they knew somebody didn't put their soul into it, so it became fucking worthless.
Which, and basically, I mean, that comes back to kind of, again, I'm just I like to connect things. I think that comes back down to selling yourself before, you know what I mean? And that's just, I think that's really the moral, or I guess the topic of the day, or essentially the core of the day, is that a lot of bands don't sell themselves. They try to just throw enough crap at the wall and hope that it sticks. And then, you know, they're just grasping at straws without really building that foundation. And I think that is really what's important to establishing yourself. These things also take time. I mean, Krosis has been a band already for 3.5 years. And just now, you know, over this past, you know, few months or a year or so, I mean, we're really starting to finally get off the ground after all of us having been musicians in other projects for probably the best part of a decade. After years of showing up, working on your craft, and then specifically on this project, doing it for 3+ years. That's why I laugh at, a guy messaged me earlier today, and he's like, you know, oh, well, this type of content isn't working. I'm like, well, because he was doing like behind the scenes stuff, and he's just saying, he's like, it's not working. And I said, well, first of all, is it entertaining? And he's like, no. I'm like, well, okay, well, it's not going to work if it's not entertaining. 2, how long have you been doing it? He's like, well, we only put out a couple videos. I'm like, well, you just haven't done it long enough. You watch episode 1 of the Joe Rogan podcast and it's fucking garbage, right? Like, it was awful. But you do it over time. 1, you get better at it. But then there's also, I think, a cumulative effect of content. You show up every day to bring value to people. More people key in, you build that familiarity. And by building that familiarity, they feel an emotional like connection with you. And that makes them more likely to support you. It helps build that context. So like having that patience and you have to like be addicted to the game too. You have to be addicted to like creating things and building things. And then it's like,
And if you enjoy that, if you enjoy the act of like showing up every day and making videos and writing, blogs and doing podcasts and stuff like that, dude, then it's fine, because every day you're just showing up to do the thing that you like to do. It feels like work, but it feels like work that's gratifying, right? Because you're just scratching your own itch.
It goes back to the authenticity aspect, that you're doing it for the genuine passion of it, as opposed to some ulterior motive, which is going to eventually make whatever you're doing hollow because it's not authentic.
Right. And then even here's the sort of the interesting piece of that, is that even you don't want that. You don't want to build a career around something that's not truly you, because then what ends up happening? You end up basically having a job, right? You show up every day, you're a fucking rock star, but you're like, yeah, I fucking hate this though. This sucks. Like, I'm dead inside. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's better for you to like do what you love to do. Oh, it'd be
just that to me is just the biggest like poetic injustice.
Yeah. Just
for somebody who has everything that guys like my guys want, and they hate it. Like that, I could strangle those people. Like, how dare you throw away such a gift?
Sure.
But
well, go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's all. It's just, I agree. I think that should definitely be the core of whatever you're doing, because if not, then again, it's people can tell. People can tell when you're doing it for the right reasons. I think, especially in today's world, people can smell, bullshit. I think it's very apparent. I think it even comes down to whenever bands like do actually like sell out and they stop writing what they want to write. It just seems like the overall music quality becomes conformed and cookie cutter, and just, it's kind of just the degradation of that band for the sake of an extra profit. And to me, I will unfollow a band, no quicker than whenever they pull something like that. Because to me, they're not the same band anymore. They're not even
as soon as they shave off all of those rough edges and they make themselves safe. That's when I'm like, okay, I'm out. Like, this isn't interesting anymore. You're not doing anything that's like, I don't know, it's too safe, right? And when it's too safe, I'm just like, there's so much good shit out there that I don't have time to pay attention to something that's
limited. And that's that comes back down to, I think, tying in, I guess, theme number 3, if you will, aside from selling yourself and authenticity, I think comes back to, like you said, with that gratitude. I think keeping your fan base and your friends, and I'm so weird about the word fans, because I can't wrap around the fact that I would, or my project or Krosis, we would have fans. To me, these are friends to me. Like, fans comes from like a place of worship. I don't want that. I don't want that kind of responsibility. I'm serious, because then you have to, it's just, there's so much pressure, and then you're in the limelight, and there's this, I don't want any kind of like idolatry towards me. That's just not, I don't like that. That to me makes me uncomfortable. I like friends. I want people to come to my shows and be like, hey, Dan, what's up? Or, come to me and be like, oh yeah, that was a sick set. Maybe that's just that local band mindset. But I pray to God that I always keep that, because that's just, it's a part of who I am, and I pray that I never sell out. But I think it comes back to having that gratitude, and that's why I make, on like a weekly or at least a monthly basis, I try to make posts to all the people that follow my band or just follow me as an artist, and just thank them for their time, because our time is limited. Time is money. I mean, essentially, there are millions of bands that someone could be listening to at any given moment. And for people to have devoted as much time as they have to listening to Krosis or to following me, when they could be following the plethora of other artists out there, to me, is the greatest gift that anyone could ever possibly give me. I mean, that is so validating and heartwarming. I don't even know how to express my gratitude, So I think coming from that attitude of gratitude mindset and staying humble and, keeping it real, is not only going to make people want to gravitate towards you and show, the authenticity of you as an artist and help you sell yourself. How about that for tying everything?
There you go, man. You're killing it.
But, it's just going to make the process better. I mean, I make art because I love it. I make art. It's gotten me through breakups. It's gotten me through just, depression. It's gotten me through even thoughts of suicide. I mean, if we're getting real, like it's been a lifesaver. It is everything to me. And I speak for all of my guys. Like we do this because this is everything. We've poured thousands of dollars into everything that we've done over just the years because this is our heart and soul. So whenever people meet us halfway, or even more so, I've had people drive across states to come see us, and I have tears in my eyes because I'm like, really? For us?
Yeah.
Like, it's just mind-blowing to think that there are people in other countries, like right now, that are validating the hard work and the effort and the energy and the time and the blood and sweat and tears and just getting knocked down over and over again. It makes all of that worthwhile. It makes all the struggle, being sick on tour to where I was in urgent care and almost died from an infection the last tour. It makes all of that worthwhile because, you're just so thankful and overwhelmed that you want to give back to them. And it goes back to making them feel like the rock stars, even though they're the ones making you feel like rock stars. So I think if you can put all of those things together in kind of an amalgamation of keeping it real, keeping it authentic, selling yourself as a person, as a brand, even before, pitching, your name brand or your business to other people, and being thankful the whole time and have, that attitude of gratitude while you do it. As long as you stick with it and you really market yourself well, I can't imagine that you wouldn't achieve some level of success. If I'm doing it, anyone else can do it. I'm serious. There's nothing I'm doing that is special. I've talked to multiple classes at NC State as an arts entrepreneurship graduate for my professor, the entry-level classes, and I've told them, and they've come up to me and they were like, other speakers made it seem like it was this really difficult thing. I went in there and I was like, anything I'm doing, you can do.
Sure.
Anything. And people make it seem like it's this out of reach, out of touch, impossible thing. It's like this pipe dream. I'm like, nah, I'm going to go get this. Like, I wake up, thinking in a future tense, like, no, I'm going to be successful. It's going to happen. What are the steps to do it? I'm objective based, like a video game. The end of a video game is going to come. You just have to work towards those objectives and scale the mountain, essentially. I've been playing a lot of God of War, so
there you go.
Scaling the mountain. And getting to that, it's going to exist. You have to see those goals. You have to set your sights on it, see yourself there, and ask, all right, what is point A through Z? What's going to work? And it's going to take failing 99.999% of the time. You have to be like Rocky Balboa. Get back up after you feel like you're dead. Let that adrenaline keep pushing you forward and keep utilizing the skills as if it's still day one and you still got all that energy. So that's really, people ask me, what's the key to success? I'll tell them that every single time. And, it takes a little bit of luck, but I think by utilizing and maximizing opportunities, you kind of create your own luck, man. I don't really take the luck. I don't buy into the luck bullshit. I don't think that's true. Right. I think you create your own luck. What are you willing to do for it? Good.
Right. Well, the way I've heard it said is the harder I work, the luckier I get. And that seems to be my life for sure. It's like the more I show up, the more value that I try to bring, the harder I work. It just seems like the more stuff just kind of like falls in my lap. And it's a weird place, especially now, because I've never been public facing. I've always been happy being the behind the scenes guy. But what I'm finding more and more is that I'm kind of getting put out there. And the more I guess for me, it was an insecurity thing, right? I was comfortable being behind the scenes, but the more I put myself out there, the more people reach out and they're like, hey, love what you're doing. I love how much value you're bringing so many people. Here's this thing. Right. And to most people on the outside, they're like, boom, luck. But it's like, in my opinion, it's like, I'm showing up every day, bringing value, showing value, holding nothing back. I give all of my best advice away for free, right? I do all these like artist consultations and stuff like that. Honestly, 99% of the time, it's just me taking all the stuff that I've already said and catering it to their exact situation. Yeah. It's not like there's a paywall and you don't get the good shit. It's like, no, I give everything away for free. And if people need something that's like really dialed in and very specific for them, the only reason I charge is because I know that if I charge, they're going to show up prepared and they're going to be more likely to follow through on the goals they set for themselves because they don't want to waste $150. It's got nothing to do with me wanting to charge or me wanting to make money because it's not a good use of my time. It's like, comes down, I make maybe $50 an hour, which is fine, but I make a lot more with the other companies that I have because they require almost no work from me. So, I mean, it's not a compelling enough, like, offer as far as, hourly wage. The only reason I do it is like, I want you to have skin in the game. And I believe so much in people having skin in the game, because if they don't have skin in the game, they don't take it seriously. They're willing to just like cut and run way quicker because there's no negative repercussion. They don't get that feeling of, oh, I actually fucked up. Oh, I lost $150. And I find like what the big reason I started charging was because I realized that people were, they were willing to be generous with my time, right? They were willing to waste 2-3 hours of my time and not take action and do all that. But they're really hesitant to waste $150. And it's like, you split that among 5 people. It's not a lot of money. But the idea of losing $150, they're like, well, we better just get after this shit because I don't want to feel like we wasted that money. They're fine with wasting my 3 hours. Like, fuck that, whatever. It's fine. Right. But it's like, he
doesn't have things to do.
Right. He doesn't have a family. He doesn't have other, 2 other businesses that he has to worry about and a third that he's working on, like all that stuff. They don't worry about it.
I'm charging for lessons now because I've started giving lessons recently, and part of me almost doesn't even want to charge for lessons just because, like, I personally as an artist I just love teaching art. I love talking about art. I love talking drums. I could do it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I want to see other musicians like get better at their craft. I like watching artists develop as much as me. And for me, it just comes down to, I know that if they're paying me, they both know that not only do they know that, I'm taking it seriously enough to, make it a business so that it's not just me just haphazardly, okay, let's sit down, it's a legitimate thing. But, they also know, that what they're getting is going to be worth the money that they're putting into it on both sides, that It's worth my time as far as an entrepreneur, that it holds me to the standard of giving the best tutorial of whatever I'm teaching that I can, as well as on their end that, okay, I'm putting money towards this, so it's going to be that higher standard. It kind of raises the expectations on both levels. I know they're going to also take it seriously, and it puts a business entrepreneurial criteria on the lesson, as opposed to just it's why you buy a more expensive wine. It's because it's more expensive. Why? Because there's more that went into it. Buying an $80 bottle. I'm Italian, so everything's food or wine.
Everything's right. I was going to say everything's food or wine with you.
Look, I have the Italian flag hanging up right there, man. Whenever you buy an $80 bottle of wine, there's that expectation on both ends that, hey, the people that are buying this, I'm marketing towards that clientele of people that are going to appreciate it. It helped kind of with product development, or which you can apply to anything. But it's also, if I buy an $80 bottle of wine, I know it's going to be damn good. Like whenever there is that markup, generally speaking, there's some things are inflated, but I know I'm going to get what I paid for whenever it comes to quality. Sure. So
that higher price tag allows them to follow through on that promise to you. Right? Because it's like, if they were just trying to make it the cheapest wine possible, they could never deliver on that experience of you getting a really good high quality. Like, so it's, there's that reciprocity, right? They show up, they bring the value with like a high quality product, and then you support that high quality product. Yes, because of this thing that you already got, but then also kind of paying it forward so you can continue to have those experiences. I think it's the same thing kind of with bands too. And one thing that I'm really excited about, I'm interested in, is the idea of like patronage and using a platform like Patreon, for example, to allow people to like go direct to customer and, they'll subscribe for $1 a month, $5 a month, whatever, sky's the limit. Yeah. I love the idea of them regularly funding you through these like microtransactions of $1 even, basically so that you can continue to serve them like a higher quality experience. So it's like, yes, it's in recognition for the value you've already brought, but then also showing up to support you in creating future experiences for them. And it's like, again, it's that sort of reciprocity thing. It's like, we don't want to charge more so that we can go buy a fucking Bentley and buy a Mercedes and like have a Lamborghini too. Like, why have fucking 3 cars, buy a mansion and all this shit? Like, I don't think the best thing to do is that. The best thing to do is charge more so that you can deliver more. You know, like that to me, that's the way you make a huge successful business. It's not by taking all that money out and living the fucking lifestyle. It's like you take that money, you reinvest that shit back in, you find new innovative ways to bring more value to the people who are paying those premium prices. You give them the full on fucking experience. You show them gratitude. You honor that relationship as much as possible. You show up every fucking day to do the work because that's what it fucking takes, right? And you fucking grind and you don't get entitled. You don't go me, what can I fucking get? It's like, what can you get? What can I do to serve you better? And then start thinking about ways like, okay, if they're paying, if our show is $15, what can I do to provide $30 to $40, $50 of value? Yeah. Right? And then that creates the compelling offer for, if I pay $15 and I get a $30 show, it's really easy to sell me a fucking shirt.
Yeah.
Right. Really. Cause I'm like, dude, I feel like I owe you something, man. This was a $50 show. You guys fucking put it on. Like, dude, I'm looking for a way. Good fans do that. They look for ways to support you. And the way you make those good fans is by showing up, doing the fucking work, building those relationships, loving on people, being just a fucking person, man. Like, just be a good fucking person. That being said, I think that's a pretty goddamn good note to, leave this on, man. This is a good goddamn talk. This was fun.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I had a blast. And, I was going to say, if there were any other questions that any like users that submitted or anyone commented, like just the kind of last final thoughts, I'd be happy to just throw a sentence or two at them because I saw a couple of them had like some legitimate questions that I wanted to answer.
Yeah, one of them had to do. Hold on, I wrote dodown a couple of them. So we'll do like maybe just like 2 or 3 like question answer. Boom. One of them was, have you ever felt the feeling of like plateauing in your playing, and then what did you do to kind of get over that hump? And then give me like a 15 to 20 second response.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I definitely hit the wall often. It's a very often thing, especially if I feel like my band's just playing the same songs over and over and I'm not getting a whole lot of my own practice time. With the world at your fingertips, there is always something new to learn. So go and watch your favorite drummer. Watch, check out Drumeo, or just check out, I've been studying something called metric modulation recently from a drummer called Chris Turner from a band called Ocean's 8 Alaska. And, I've been watching, I just was surfing the internet and it took me 5 minutes to find this video on metric modulation. And I was like, this is mind blowing. I have no idea how to even begin doing this. And I was watching a couple of videos that he did on teaching it. And I was like, cool, I'm going to go to my kit and try this now. And now I've been putting it into some of Krosis stuff. So, working with other musicians is a huge help, but just studying a new thing and just trying it and seeing how you can apply it to your style. The more you learn, the more you're going to have fun with drumming or whatever it is, like, things like that. So, always be learning and look for new things because I promise there is always something more for you to learn. Right. That's the biggest thing.
Hell yeah. Another one was about the, you've got a ton of endorsements. Like as far as like, most drummers that I see, they might have one. They might have like maybe 2, but you have several, right? You've got like Soul Tone. You got a shoe deal. What are you fucking, you Kobe Bryant? No, but
the Braidham shoes are, and I'm not trying to like plug, like genuinely, Braidham shoes are the best shoes I have ever used for drumming. That is genuinely a company that I really, I believe in all my I only work with companies that I genuinely believe in.
Gotcha.
But as far as like clothing, the shoes help me, especially with heel toe and playing really fast stuff. Yeah. Unmatched. They are unbelievably awesome product made by drummers for drummers. It's incredible. Sorry, do I sound like that?
You're okay. No, it's totally fine. So here's the question is, how did you facilitate those interactions? And then when you did, what types of things were they looking for? I intuitively have an idea, but hearing it from you would probably be better.
Yeah, so a lot of it is just trial and error. Starting out, like I had originally applied for some endorsements and I just wasn't there yet. I didn't have the tour experience. I didn't have like the networking. I was not knowledgeable enough to be able to sell myself to these companies that didn't see the value in me. So a lot of it is creating that intrinsic value within yourself and being able to sell it in a way that makes you seem valuable to the company. So I started out with imperial symbols. Actually, it was my first one.
Mm-hmm.
Then they unfortunately went out of business, and I started looking for another one. So I hit up Soul Tone, and I threw everything I could at them. Every link, every playthrough, everything I've done. I wrote up it was like I was typing a paper to get into college. I mean, This was massively. I just was like, I told them all the things that I'd be willing to do for the company. I said I do a lot of marketing, a lot of networking, a lot of social media stuff. And I was like, I sold myself. So I started with them. And then if you can just manage one, then I went from them to Excel Drumsticks. Now, Excel is a little bit smaller of a company. So I wanted to find a little bit smaller company, a company that I really believed in, just because as a young, I don't have the credentials yet to apply for like Vic Firth. You know, I mean, I'm not there yet. I understand where I'm at. I understand, that the level I'm at, and I understand my place. So I was like, okay, well, let me go find another stick company that maybe isn't as known, try to be a big fish in a small pond. So I hit up Excel, and I was like, hey, I'm this, and this, same kind of pitch. And I was like, I would really like to be able to try out your sticks. They sent me a couple different pairs. They were like, absolutely. And I negotiated. A lot of it's negotiating. I said, I want to be able to put my signature on all of them. I want to be able to put my band's logo printed on all of them. They were like, yeah, we can do that, stuff like that. And I was like, in return, I will, market the absolute hell out of your company, and I'll bring them on every tour. I'll show them to people, take pictures, this, that, and the other thing, formed a contract with them. Then I went off to Anchor. And I was like, I wanted to work with brands that I genuinely, it comes back to that genuine authenticity, right? I wanted to work with with brands and companies that I genuinely believed in. And I was like, well, I wanted a custom kit. I was something I really have wanted my entire life. I've been playing 10 years, never had a custom kit. Went to Anchor, found out a company that was in my state so that it could be kind of almost like a family relationship or something a little bit more personal. And again, selling myself as more of a homegrown kind of dude, as opposed to just, hey, I'm from somewhere. The guy with Anchor's worked with, he makes his drums for Silent Planet. Silent Planet's drummer uses Anchor. And I genuinely, again, I found a company. I was like, this company is awesome. I love Anchor drums. Went to go meet him in person. And I was like, hey, I want to do a custom kit. Do you do endorsements? And I sold myself in a way. He said, I don't usually do a lot of endorsements, but I like you. I like your art. I like, the way that you carry yourself. And he's like, for you, he's like, I'll do an endorsement. I don't know if you've ever seen pictures of my kit. It's my beautiful pride possession. He did an absolutely outstanding job. And I told him I wanted something that was a little bit unique. So he's like, okay, yeah. So I talked with him, and I became friends with the owner, operator, his name's Sean Skipper. Amazing drums. And they sound legendary when they're mic'd up. Even when they're not mic'd up, they're godly sounding. Yeah. So I went from them, and I was like, let me try to do something. I saw that this brand called Vatem, I've heard a couple different,
one of them
on dialect. I think Vatem. I saw that they were making drum shoes. I'm like, I'm so tired of playing either just in socks or like whatever I can find. I'm like, I want drum shoes. That'd be so cool to have a clothing endorsement. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people go for like shirts or they go for hats. I was like, no, I want drum shoes. This is sick. Mm-hmm. I realized that they had Alex Rudinger endorsed. They had Josh Miller from Emure. They had like big drummers endorsed. And I was just like, I'm going to shoot my shot. Let's see what happens.
There you go, right? Sure.
And I just threw everything, and I messaged the owner of the company. I was like, hey, my name's Dan, blah, blah, blah. I was like, I already bought a pair of the shoes before I asked for the endorsement.
Right.
I already owned the product to show him that I believed in it. And I was like, I want to be a part of your company. Can I have an endorsement? I will promise I'll make it worth your while. And he was like, yeah, dude.
And you already had those endorsements. Like, I think a lot of the time, like, people don't want to be the first. So it's like, if you can get that one, the ones after that become much easier. And I think like the way you approached it was smart. It's like you're in a way, I mean, it kind of feels like kind of scaling up, I suppose, where it's like, you don't necessarily go for like you didn't go for a Nike endorsement. You know what I mean? It's like you went for something that felt like there was some type of a transfer of value between both of you, right? Where it's not like you're trying to get them to put you on. You literally showed up and you're like, here's what I'm willing to do for you. You know, laid out. I think that this would be something that would actually be good for both of us, and not me just doing lip service and saying, hey, you know, basically the equivalent of, hey, give me like cheap shoes and shit like that. You know what I mean? It's like there was actually a transfer of value. Let me get to this last question because I have a meeting I have to go to. So the last question, this is a big one. Hold on. Let me find it. I want to get the wording just right. That's how important this question is.
The build up, the suspense. I'm nervous.
God, dude. Okay. Okay, there's the question I want to ask, and then there's the question I'm going to ask. The question I want to ask is how fast can he beat off? That's the question I wanted to ask. The question I'm going to ask is how many bands...
I saw that.
I know you saw that. You commented on it. That's the question I want to ask. Really, I assume it's really fast. But the question I'm going to ask, which is slightly dumb... No, it's not dumber. It's slightly less dumb. How many bands are named after dragon priests?
I honestly don't know any. Like, I'm a massive Skyrim fan. It's probably, if not, I mean, it's my top 3 favorite games. I've beaten it, played it countless times. I love the Elder Scrolls series. I just love that whole aesthetic. And the band was actually named before I got into it. They were still kind of a project, essentially, that was kind of trying to find a permanent drummer. And I was like, you know, holy crap, you named this after one of the Dragon Priests. And they didn't even know that. My guitarist, Adam, his little brother plays Skyrim a lot, threw the name out while they were searching for a name. And they were like, that sounds cool, whatever.
Let's go with that.
A whole lot into it. And I don't know any other bands from Dragon Priest. I don't know any.
There you go.
I'm trying to think. I mean, I don't think like Nachrin is a band.
No.
I don't think like...
That sounds like it'd be like a black metal band. That'd definitely be like one of the like really shitty ones, which are the, you know, those are the shitty ones are the good ones. You know what I mean? They have that sort of like,
the old school cult, whatever.
Just the worst, but also the best.
I don't think any. So maybe we capitalize taking over the Skyrim market. I mean,
there you go.
That's a selling point.
There you go. Target that. Put that in your Facebook audience.
Yeah.
Boom. People who like Skyrim and deathcore.
No, progressive
subgenres.
No, but honestly, there is a lesson there. If you can make, like, whenever it's coming down to picking a band name, pick something that's going to like be relative in another market. Yeah. Like for all the Skyrim fans, Skyrim is a massively platinum, like world-renowned video game. If you can take something from that where people are like, oh, that's another relatable, you know, a relatable point there, you know, you can be, oh, wow, haha, your band, you know, because the people all the time are calling us like Dragon Priest Core or things like that.
There you go.
And that's a way to build, you know, that relationship essentially with fans that are also into Skyrim. So if you can do it in a way with something that's relatively relevant still, whenever you're, you know, don't obviously steal content or steal
what you got to do.
But,
what you got to do is pull a Galactic Empire and you guys all dress up like Dragon Priests.
That dude, Galactic Empire is brilliant because they're not that big of a band, but they play like big shows.
Did you see that? Was it in Japan, like 50,000, something like that?
I'm not even that big of a, I know I'm probably going to get crucified for this. I'm not that big of a Star Wars fan. Mm-hmm. I would go see them just because of how cool it is what they do. Like, that's so neat. I think that's so, and think about the connections they'll be able to make. Like, for all you, they might be able to like work with George Lucas or something. You don't know, or Disney.
No idea. Disney. That would be sweet.
I mean, I very well could see them rising to the top faster than a band that doesn't have a niche like that.
Yeah.
Just because of how relatable it's going to be.
Absolutely.
So that's one of the reasons I'm so happy we took this name, because now anything that's Skyrim themed, people are going to eat it up. So.
There you go.
I hope we're the one and only. I would like to have the monopoly on Skyrim themed bands, but if not, that's okay too.
There you go, man.
Anyway, thank you so much, dude. Seriously, like,
this was fun, man.
I love stuff like this. I can't wait to to see what's going to come in 2019. For all my people at NAMM, I'll see you at NAMM. Please come say hi. And I guess the usual plugs, follow my band Krosis on Facebook. Feel free to look me up on Facebook and hit the follow button, because I'm probably going to still be at 5,000 friends for the rest of my life, because I can never stop bothering people with my music and adding them and networking. All of our stuff's on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Amazon, iHeartRadio, Pandora, stuff like that. So, feel free to check our stuff out. And if you see me at a show, give me a hug. I promise I'll never charge to meet me. So, so that's my obligatory plug.
Boom. There you go, man.
New music's out soon as well. We got a music video shoot on a Hush Hush. I haven't announced this yet. We got a big music video shoot right after a radio takeover that we're doing in December. So this new track is it's going to be wild. We're really crafting this to be something really epic. So definitely stay tuned for all that. And that's it, man. Thank you seriously so much. I had a blast doing this.
Dude, thank you, man. It was an awesome conversation. It's always great to talk with somebody who is, one, as articulate as you, but then two, also as entertaining, man. So it was great talking with you.
Yes, likewise. Thank you.